recently got our first look at The Last of Us Season 2. Of course, the brand new season of The Last of Us, following Season 1, which came out last year in early 2023. This season will be coming out in early 2025, which still does not feel like a real year. Can't believe we're only a few months away. That's crazy. But The Last of Us Season 2 will be an adaptation of The Last of Us Part 2. Of course, the video game that was a sequel to The Last of Us Part 1. And in The Last of Us Season 1. Makes sense, right? This will be adapting at least the first half of that game, as they are splitting the second game into 2 seasons of television. The reason is because the second game is a lot bigger. That's bullshit. The real reason is because there's no third game yet, and if they did the whole second game in Season 2, well, then it would be years and years and years before we get Season 3. Now, if you stretch it out, you get to have 3 seasons, and hopefully by the time Season 3 comes out in a couple years, The Last of Us Part 3 will be on the horizon. We'll see. But I wanted to jump here and talk about this because The Last of Us Season 2 is going to be a very interesting thing. Because if you've been living under a rock, or if you're just not that into video games, The Last of Us Part 2 is one of the most controversial games that has ever been released. You're on 2 sides of a coin with that game. You're either somebody who played it or saw the leaks and spoilers of the game and were absolutely disgusted with some of the major story choices that they made within that game, or you played through it and it absolutely worked for you and you ended up loving it maybe even more than the first game and you think it's one of the greatest video games ever. I'm on the latter of that argument. I just think The Last of Us Part 2 is a masterpiece that hasn't really been matched by anything else I think I've ever played. That's my opinion. Story-wise, it works for me. I think it's one of the darkest things I've ever played, but something that truly takes the revenge story and throws it on its head and is really just a remarkable piece of work. But then gameplay-wise, what an experience. What a great survival horror game. But there are a lot of story things in that game that are going to definitely have to happen in the second season of The Last of Us, and I'm very interested to see if the reaction of the public is going to be similar as it was to the game, because there is a very big difference between a game and a video and a TV show. In a game, you're spending 20-30 hours with these characters. You have to literally be the characters, whereas a show, the perspective is controlled. The time you're spending with these characters is lesser, so I don't know how people are going to react to a lot of these moments. Now, bear warning, from this point on, I'm going to be spoiling The Last of Us Part 2, and I'm going to be spoiling some parts of what I'm expecting to happen in the TV show. So if you don't know, click off. But of course, at the beginning of The Last of Us Part 2, or about an hour and a half into the game, Joel, the main character, who is played by Pedro Pascal in the show, he dies. He gets killed. Goodbye, Joel. Which is pretty remarkable because Joel is the main character of The Last of Us, and his relationship between him and Ellie is kind of the focal point of that first game. But the entire point of the second game is to tell this revenge tale. This woman named Abby comes in. She's being played by Caitlin Dever in the TV show, who we do get to see in the trailer, but in the video game, she comes and she finds Joel and she kills him. Why? Because her father was one of the doctors, one of the surgeons that was working on Ellie at the end of the first game. So she went on this revenge quest to kill Joel to avenge her father, and she completes her task. She kills Joel, but she goes back realizing that, well, it hasn't really fixed any of her problems. She's still kind of miserable. And then Ellie, after Joel dies, goes after Abby. She wants to now get revenge, and she goes on a bloody, horrifying quest that will lead to nothing but just more misery. It's a game that's about this cycle of revenge. In a world like this where people are violent and constantly killing, there will always be new loops of revenge opened up. It's kind of like Kill Bill. At the beginning of Kill Bill, when, she kills the chick and she tells the daughter, hey, you're one day gonna want to kill me for the same reason that I want to kill Bill. So I welcome you to come after me. It's just this cycle that ravagely repeats and repeats and repeats, and that's the point of The Last of Us Part 2, to sort of break that cycle. But obviously a lot of people were very upset about that. They were upset about the fact that Joel, everybody's favorite character, got killed off in the first, half of the game. People were just very unhappy about that. The main thing they were also unhappy about is the fact that they made you play as Abby for pretty much half the game. You play as the chick who killed Joel, and that is something that pissed a lot of people off. Because I don't think people were very open to the idea of the story they were trying to tell. They were trying to tell this story of trying to justify what Abby did and tell the audience, listen, she had really good reasons to do what she did, and if you had been playing as her since the first game, you would see her as the main character and Ellie as the bad guy, and that was kind of the point, and it did not work for a lot of people. But I'm very interested when this show comes out, and it seems to be following the same pathway as the game. I don't think they're going to change it drastically and have Joel be alive. Maybe they will, but that might be even more controversial than what they did in the game. But when it comes out, are people going to be empathetic with Abby? Are people going to be angry and revolt against the show because Joel and Pedro Pascal are now gone? Is the show going to focus heavily on Abby? Are there going to be like 5 episodes that are strictly from her perspective and not from Ellie's? Like, what are they going to do to differentiate it from the game, but also keep the essence of what the game is, being this sort of sub-commentary on revenge. I'm very interested, and the trailer here just looks absolutely brilliant. I think it looks like the second game, and a lot of the stuff that happened to the second game that's really famous, like that weird cultish tribe, we clearly see that they're going to be showing up, these bald people. You have this war that's going to be raging in Seattle, and of course in the middle of it all is Ellie on this revenge quest with Dina, who looks brilliantly played by Isabel Merced. Even Jackson, which you're going to spend a lot of time with in the early episodes, looks beautifully built. The production design here is awesome, and it just brings me back to the vibes of that second game, which is not very old. The second game is only 4 years old, and I remember the trailers and the reveals for it like it was yesterday, and it brought me back to those vibes, those feelings before that game came out, and I cannot help but be excited by seeing this thing be adapted so soon after. And I hope they do it right, and I hope they aren't afraid to change things, but I also hope they don't change the big things that maybe pissed a lot of people off in the first time. I think those are the things that make it special. I think the fact that people talk about this game and are divided on it is a good thing. That is the best kind of storytelling. That is divisive storytelling that is worth debating about. Is it great? Is it horrible? And that's an open conversation that's good. When things are just one or the other and there is no debate, kind of boring, ain't it? What do you guys think, though? Are you excited for The Last of Us Season 2? Let me know down below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next one.